it's a great time. So for priests, what
Right. Okay. So
the
back
heck
to
is
priests,
going
yes.
on? What the heck is going on with the linking issue that you were
Back to
referring
priests.
to
Okay.
2 weeks ago,
Right.
or 2.5 weeks ago? Is that they made changing linking itself. So the recap is that linking priests themselves, if you don't know, is the ability to have two priests of, I'm guessing, the same faith link together so that their favor, which is like their mana pool, both of their mana pools together into one giant clump of
Right.
favor.
I was watching our past stream where we were discussing this when the changes were happening, and I realized that somewhere along the way, I had to go AFK, and when I came back, we completely forgot to finish that discussion. And
This happens all the time.
yeah, it happens all the time. So we can pick up from there. But the idea is that linking has been in the game forever, where two priests link up together and share their favor. And as it turns out, people had discovered, and this was a long time ago, like on the old servers, people had discovered that there is a way to use this feature to help with the channeling skill gain. And the way they were doing that was that when you link priests together, it increases the difficulty of the cast. Right? So they would link a whole bunch of priests together, making the cast really high difficulty. And then they would use a spell that was like really low cast time, really low difficulty, like Opulence or Light Token or something like that, and just cast that over and over again. Now that 10 difficulty cast is now, however much you want, 70 difficulty, 80 difficulty. And as long as you keep that difficulty somewhere near your skill gain, your actual skill, then you're going to get skill ticks for it. So you can potentially use a 5-second cast timer and just spam it over and over again, using the infinite favor from the linked priest that you have to just get your channeling up in a very quick and easy way.
Yeah.
So this only became an issue when the new servers launched and people were doing this on the new servers to get their channeling into the 70s, possibly even higher, within a couple weeks of the server opening, maybe 3 weeks or whatever, which was insane. And so the devs were like, no, we can't have any of that. We want to progress a little bit slower. So they nerfed it to the ground. Their initial gut instinct was to just let's turn off favor gain from linked priests. So they reduced the favor gain. And then they said at the time they're going to look at it and try to come up with a better fix for that. And their ultimate fix was that instead of reducing favor gain, they nerfed channel gain when you're linked. So now it's like if you have, I think if you have 2 priests just linked together, there's no channel nerf. But if you have 3, then you get a 15% less skill gain. And it's 15% more for every additional priest. So if you have 8 priests, you're pretty much getting no skill gain anymore. So that's what they did.
And okay, the initial reaction to the favor, nerfing favor gain, I guess it didn't go well. That's why they did not end up doing that. That was the big backlash.
I actually think it wasn't the backlash that did it. I think it was that it didn't achieve what they wanted it to.
Which was, okay, so what did they want to achieve?
They wanted to prevent people from using this system in order to cast low difficulty spells and still get skill gain into the 90s. And nerfing the favor gain didn't do that. People could still link 8 priests together and cast those spells and still get channeling gain. They might have to sacrifice something on, sacrifice materials to get the favor back. I don't think so, though. I honestly don't think so. But yeah, they could have their ult just sacrificing while they're just spamming, and that would have gotten around that problem. So instead, they just went straight for channel skill gain nerf, and they just nerfed the skill gain to the ground.
So I'm assuming this makes a lot of sense. So now they nerf channel skill gain with linking a bunch of priests together. How has this been taken now that it's been a few weeks? What are your thoughts? You're a priest, so what are your initial thoughts about that? Because you've never done it yet, so you're coming from knowing what leveling a priest is. You know what it takes to level channeling. You know, and channeling, for people that don't know, is the skill that you need for, and correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, like the successful chance of casting a spell and the power that spell has.
Yes.
So, and this is an example here, is like the success. Let's say you wanted to enchant a tool. Let's say you want to enchant a tool. So we know that there's a spell that Venora priests have. It's called Circle of Cunning. That if you put Circle of Cunning on, let's say, a pickaxe, you get more skill gain when you're doing mining. So, but Circle of Cunning has the ability to have a power number on it. So the higher the number, the more skill gain you get. So that number starts at 1, goes up to, I don't even know if there's a technical limit, just like a skill-based limit of some kind. We've seen casts over 100, usually caps out around there, 100 and something. I
think the technical limit is 109 now.
Okay, 109. And so...
Is it one,
I don't know. I thought we've seen...
Can you actually land a 110 cast? Is that a thing? Is it possible to land a 110 cast?
I mean, if we've seen it, then I guess it's possible. But very rare.
If it's possible, the only way I can see a 110 cast landing is if you first cast on the item and land a 0. Like, it has to come out as a 0. And the only way that you can do that is if it had no enchant on it before and you literally roll and you get a 0. It can come out as a 0. And then the next cast you do on it, the absolute next cast that you do on it, has to be 100. Like, it has to be like a 100 roll. Perfect, clean 100. That's the only way I can see it happening. Right, if you land a 0 and have benediction, is 109 the maximum? That's the thing. I haven't casted on my priest since before any changes to the priest. Like, it's been a long time since I've done any casting, so my knowledge about casting and stuff is like quite antiquated. I mean, I just learned that they buffed the favor regen, and people are like, I remember when, in order to get even 30 favor, you'd have to wait like a half an hour or more, and to get to 50, you just never would wait to get to 50. It would be
so when did they do this? Was there does anybody know when they
if I had to guess,
got this regen up?
If I had to guess, it probably happened sometime around the time they got rid of the player gods, because there was a whole priest revamp at that time. And they did a priest revamp for PvP, so a lot of the priests got a lot of different spells for PvP. That's when the tentacle spell came in, and all the animations for those before the demigods removal.
And this was
in the Libella to Freedom patch. Okay.
And this was after you stopped really priesting a lot, I'm guessing.
Yeah. When they allowed Libella to come over, at that time I was maybe just thinking, should I change to Libella? And then I decided not to. I kept my Najo. I did a little bit of casting after that, and then I haven't done any casting since.
I see.
I must say, I probably have like 70,000 favor just sitting on the old servers waiting to cast, but I never got around to it.
Which I guess is not as important these days if you're regenning quicker.
Right. I don't know. I don't even know. I'd have to look at it.
Griffo, you start sacrificing at the altar of Libella. Go Lib. You should.
Does Libella have something like Genesis? I don't even know. It's in ropes. Yeah, it's in ropes. See, early on when we were investing into the priests, we invested also time into skilling up rope making. So we have a rope maker who has 95 skill, And then subsequently, they made big changes to ropes. Like all of a sudden, it was like in order to create ropes, it became. I think it was like cordage ropes became easier. That's what it was. They lowered the difficulty of cordage ropes by a substantial amount, and then they made each cordage rope do more favor. So like it was like a double whammy. All of a sudden, my 1,080 quality cordage ropes became like super awesome.
So they actually made cordage rope the go-to sacking item.
Yeah.
Pretty much. And then does anybody remember why they did that? Was it a side effect to another change that they were making with something else? Like, were they changing something with ropes to deal with boat making or something? Where somebody's like, well, we need to make cordage easier for boat making or something.
I don't think I ever heard of the reason why they changed the veggies or nerfed
And then
the
it
veggies.
just happened.
My feeling is they probably thought it was too easy. I don't know. Like you could just the amount of veggies that were being produced on the old servers is just absolutely insane. So you could like buy 50,000 corn or something pretty easily. And then the chopping action is like really quick, like 3 seconds or something like this. And yeah, without really too much effort, you could get a lot of favor really quick. Cordage, on the other hand, takes quite a bit longer to invest in order to get it. I honestly don't know, though. I really don't know why.
Right. I mean, it is... They both take time, but I think less people have really high rope making than they would have really high farming. That's probably true.
Now, if we can just go back a second to you were asking like what was my reaction to the whole linking and
yes,
I was keeping a close eye on the forums, and my general sense was the response from the community was like a mixed bag. There were those people in the camp of they've already got their channeling skill from this exploit. I'll call it an exploit. There was complete utter silence from those people. Like they were just like shut mouths. They probably benefited enough from it and they were okay with it changing. Then there was a whole bunch of people who were super angry because they had invested in characters and they were leveling their faith up to get them to become priests so that they can use this exploit, only to find that they nerfed it before they got there. And those people were super angry. And then there was the rest of everybody. I'll split those up into the camp. Like there's a whole bunch of people who had no idea what was going on, and there was no word from them. And then there was the people who knew what was going on, didn't know of this exploit until it was nerfed, and that's kind of the camp that I was in. I've actually never heard of this linking to increase difficulty to get channeling better. I've never heard of that until this whole change happened. In my eyes, I think it's a good change. I think it should have probably been changed a lot earlier.
So why do you think it's a good change? Do you like so? And that's a hard question to answer. So let me put some context. So let's go to the context of a player. Just as a player, you're a priest. Is this a good change?
As a player, okay, so it's one of those like you got to rip the Band-Aid off type changes, where sure, it would have been great to be able to get my channeling up into the 90s in under a month. That would have been great. But the other problem is that everybody else is also going to be doing the same thing. And next thing you know, within a month, you're going to have a ton of priests on the server able to cast. Now, that sounds great and all. However, my gut is telling me that once everybody gets to that point and the entire server's flooded with just massive amounts of enchanted items, it will end up deflating the sense of accomplishment to the point where you're not going to be feeling motivated to work that much more on your priest, right? Like I feel like I got that to that point on the old servers where my priest, he could just I had more enchanted gear than I could ever know what to do with. Like I was literally throwing away 70 enchants, like just throwing them away because nobody wants them. Nobody's gonna buy them. Nobody's gonna use them because they're all using their 80s and 90s enchants because those are super easy to get. And I had just boatloads of this stuff to the point where I was just like, why even cast anymore? Because I'll never run out of this stuff.
But they did make changes. So one thing that I would say is that you had these boatloads of enchanted items. But when you use these enchanted items, then they make a change where the enchant power goes down much faster than it used to. Wasn't that a change that happened?
I don't think so. I don't think they changed that. I could be wrong, but
or that they made it so certain things that didn't have the ability to go down now do go down.
I'm pretty sure they didn't make it so that weapons or horseshoes can go down.
Oh no, Dezo. That's going to open up a can of worms for Adam there.
Didn't I?
I'm depending
the 70 casts. Huh. No,
so that depends. Yeah. So. Yeah.
So
Adam could probably talk for like 10 minutes at least just on the differences between dispelling an item or a cast versus improving a cast.
See, and there's a bonus to your roll, right? That you get if you're casting on an item that already has a cast on it. But that bonus goes down as the cast goes higher. So it's really not even worth it to cast on anything above 40-ish. I think 40 will give you +1. I could be wrong, but it's like something like that, +1. Whereas a 5 will give you +4. So you kind of want the cast to be lower when you recast. Right, there's the formula for it.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to get to Blue Cortana. So you were saying your question was, isn't using an exploit a bannable offense? And if so, how many got banned? So here's what I'd say. I'm not a dev and I'm not part of the team, so I don't know. And yes, Purgy saying like, well, nobody got banned and all this stuff, and maybe they should have done something, but right. I would come from the standpoint of this. There are exploits in the game that nobody knows about. I mean, that's really the reason why they're still exploits. Like no one would even know about them at all. No one's doing it. And all of a sudden somebody figures it out. Or somebody knows about them. Not really knows about them. Let's say you just stumble upon it, you start doing something and like this, if you're a player, and let's look at it from a player's point of view, and this has been going up for years, like, I don't know, half a decade, I don't know how long that this has just been a thing. And you're a player and we don't know all the mechanics, so they're discovering, let's link this, let's link that, let's figure out things, and they're just figuring it out. So how do we distinguish as players between what is an exploit and what isn't an exploit when it's not really that discernible? So can you ban these guys for doing something that was, as far as we all know, a part of the game? And then at some point, the devs come in and go, oh, no, that was actually, we didn't know about this. Exploit, let's change it. So they do the change. It would be tough to be like, okay, let's ban all these players now.
Right.
Because
those players didn't know it was a bannable offense when they were doing it. They just thought it was part of the game.
In saying that, why we have to go back to why did they change it to begin with? Why is it why did they determine oh man, that it is an exploit?
Right. Right. And while you clear your throat,
based on that, so based on whatever the reason they changed it, they have to look and try to oppose some sort of action that solves that problem. And one of those actions is to patch the exploit, I guess, is to stop whatever the exploit is from happening. To that's a wrong way of saying that. To determine what to do mechanically to make it so it solves their initial underlying issue with what they're doing. And in this case, Adam said that the issue was that you could level channeling in a way that wasn't intended, because you can cast a really, really low level spell and treat it like a really high level spell, so that you can get, or you could basically control what level that spell is, so that you can level it up and use the same low level, 1 level, 5 level spell to get really good skill all the way to the top. It's like if I was just to make nails and then figured out a way, if I made nails, I can get to 100 blacksmithing. I don't need anything else. Yeah. And so that's what they were trying to patch. And so at that point, they figured out a solution, they patched it, everything's great. Now we have the problem of, okay, we've got all these priests that have really high channeling because of this. Less important for the old servers, we've got lots of players like Adam who has high channeling that did the real way. Right. And so this is more for the new servers. What do we do? And
Mr. Saria, we're going to get to that topic in just a second.
Yeah, that is what I feel hasn't been addressed. So they just sort of, and that's a harder topic of like, how do we address that?
We always struggle with these problems because these problems have plagued Wurm forever. Like fountain,
it's not the first time.
Kind of fits into this category, and it's like the game is made by a small group of people, and there's a lot of holes in the code. You know, like there's a lot of like exploitable things. Like
let's just call them like, it's not really an exploit.
So what design flaw? That's what Nice Guy was saying.
That's
might
better.
Not be right to call it an exploit, but it's a design flaw, right?
That could potentially unbalance the nature of the game, right? Could potentially unbalance the nature of the game. Oh, Mr. Saria. Yeah, thanks so much. 5, or the gift shared. Oh, you gifted tier 1 sub to Sipaku. Thank you so much, Mr. Saria.
You got to think about this from the perspective of the devs, right? They have so many things they need to be working on, and they're not really aware of a lot of the design flaws that are being misused by players to do unintended things. And this goes
whatever with, the unintended things are.
Yeah, Blue Cortina said, so you're saying if you keep it to yourself or to close friends, it's okay to use as an exploit? And the answer is no, it's still not okay. It's just that if you do that, it will probably work out to your benefit. And this has been seen in the history of Wurm, where like traders were like this, right? Like people kept traders so secret. And by the time we found out about them, like we caught the tail end of it. We thought, wow, this is like crazy game mechanic. Like, let's do this, and then all of a sudden,
but it's not an exploit. It was something that was put into the game, and then ended up when they finally tracked it over time, saw the progress of how that game mechanic was functioning or being used, and then reevaluated. Okay, is this going to destabilize the game? How is it going to destabilize the game? Do we need to make an action? And so It's not like we're calling it exploits, but they're not exploits. Like I think design, what did you say it was? A design flaw is probably a better way to put it. Now it becomes an exploit only when it's been identified, they've tracked how it's being used in the game, they've identified how it's balancing the game out, and then it becomes public, let's say, and people know about it, and then they go,
and the devs
okay, and the devs go, you know what? Yeah. We realize that this is not good for the game, so this action we're now deeming an exploit. With this action, we're now saying, like, please don't do it. We're going to be removing it from the game. We haven't yet. And at that point, it becomes a bannable offense. If you know about it, the devs are telling you about it, and then you still do it. And I'm guessing, CDN Bass, you don't want me to talk because no one can see my face now.
Most streamers have a cat cam. Brian has an Adam cam.
That's right. Yeah, so at that point, it's a ban. When people know about it, they've announced it, and you see that actually happening in the game. So when they realize that it's an exploit, and they haven't been able to actually patch it, you'll see these announcements in like the event window while playing, talking about it, saying, please, we know that you guys know about this. We know about it now. If you do this, it's now a bannable offense.
Right. The thing is, Blue Cortina, is that before it was known that people were doing this by the devs, and they at the time deemed that it was okay. This was before the new servers opened up. The reason why it became not okay is simply just because on the new servers the progress was too fast. Like on the old servers, it was looked at as a way that priests can sort of catch up to the veterans. And it didn't matter because all the veterans had 90 casting anyway. So, right, we're
looking too black and white here. It's okay. We're all here to determine how do we have a healthy player base? How do we have a healthy game? And then once they figure out that a specific game mechanic is not healthy for the game, then it's a benefit for everybody to be like, let's reevaluate how to make this healthy again. And so let's just say like that's what they did. That's what they always do. And unfortunately, that's how you have to look at it. And once you look at it in that light, why wouldn't we want a better, healthier game? And there'll be some people that are mad that a change happened because they were in the thick of it at the time, whatever. They were using it for such and such. Do something and now it's gone. And it's not a perfect answer, right? It's not. And that's the problem.
Ches is saying it shouldn't have been bannable, but there should have been rollbacks. And that is debatable. I'm sure the devs debated that as a potential thing. We don't know what went into that decision or what factors were discussed or what information they know, how many priests were using this and how high did they get. And so that was my gut reaction. I felt like there should have been rollbacks.
Well, let's say there was. Would we know about it?
Yeah, right. That's another thing.
I don't know. I mean, we're talking about it, but would we actually know whether there was like some players they would identify however many players there was? I mean, there wouldn't be that many, and then they would take action on them. Have they? I don't know. Yeah, and then what action would that be? I don't know either.
Yeah, I don't think they did anything
we don't know whether they did anything or that sort of thing, or maybe they have other changes that then because they don't have to just like, it's not again a black and white sort of thing, right? It's like they got channeling, well, let's get rid of their channeling. Maybe they have some creative ways that they can change this in the future that we don't know about either, right? Maybe channeling.
Okay, go ahead.
Yep, maybe channeling they change the way priesting works, that the impact of those people getting channeling becomes less problematic. And so they could make changes like that indirect changes that solve the problem, because the problem isn't that they have channeling skill. The problem is that that game mechanic that they used to get the channeling skill debalances the game and could ruin our basically our world, our Wurm life, the way the game works.
Well, it doesn't really detriment us. Like, it doesn't ruin it for us, because it actually just means that we have access to better casted stuff now. And the other thing I was going to say was that I can't see rollbacks being that much of a fix for it, because the reality is the people who did this are like metagaming grinders anyway. And the reality is it might have just shaved 10 hours off of their grind or something like that. Like if this wasn't in the game and regular grind, like they had to regular grind, they would have gotten to 70 like the next day or two or something like that anyway.
Yeah,
so-
and we're talking about a game that nobody's other actions in the game or skills should matter, right? We're in Wurm Online, and you can do anything in this game and accomplish anything in this game. Me and Adam joined a server that was out for quite a while, and we had so much fun doing it when we started playing Wurm. It like the question is that, well, these servers have been around for 1 month now, 1.5 months, or 1 month and 1 week.
Right.
Now we're so far behind the grind of what we can accomplish within the next year. But Wurm is a long-term game. You can come into this server a year down the road, 2 years down the road, and still make